All right, so thanks for coming in another video with Jordan is Novice. Again, we're gonna be working on the C6 behind me. One of the upgrades I've really wanted to do for quite some time. I've always seen that it needs to be done immediately or anytime that you're doing anything with the track. I wasn't fast enough to really take advantage of it or need it yet, but now I'm at that point. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be putting in an oil cooler on the front of this Corvette. That being said, I do have the Z51 package, which does mean that my radiator has the trans diff cooler on one side, and then it has the built-in oil cooler on the other side of the radiator, but that's really just not adequate enough for any high-performance driving on track. So that being said, I went ahead and got the DRM, Doug Rippie Motorsports oil cooling kit. So shop and compare those between the Improved Racing oil cooler kit. I did add the 180-degree thermostat from Improved Racing to my kit. Yeah, so that being said, let's go ahead and start getting the car in the air and start getting stuff taken off and ready to go. All right, so the first step is getting this front bumper off. And first step to do that is really just get the car in the air. So quick jacks, ready, set, go. All right, and just like that, Corvette's in the air. So, all right, and so for the people that are in the southwest of the country, oh my God, it's not hot in North Carolina, Jordan. You're right, it's really not that hot. 77 degrees in here, but 84% humidity. We're gonna take this first bolt down here loose on the fender. We're not gonna take anything further up, just that one. It's gonna be on both sides. And then we have our 1, 2, 3, 4 on this front part of the bumper cover itself. After we get those, we're gonna take our wheel off, and then again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many there are. Some of them might be missing, some of them might be there, whatever. All we're gonna do is be able to get behind that. We have 3 fasteners behind here. We have 2 studs that are looking straight down, and then we have another one that's going in there, I believe. And you can go ahead and disconnect our side marker at the same time. After that's complete, we'll come down to the bottom of the car and you'll see a handful of fasteners. So we got 7mm and 10mm fasteners down there. We're gonna go ahead and get those removed. Once all of those are removed, this will be kind of held in with kind of just a press-in clip. So we'll lift from here, and that will allow us to take the cover off that last piece. Once that's done, again, both sides, then we're just gonna go ahead and slide this off. I might have a little bit more fun because I've got a tow hook in here now, but shouldn't be too bad. All right, so that's enough talking. I'm gonna go ahead and get to it, and yeah, we'll come back with the cover ready to come off. All right, so once you got these first 4 out, and then you get this one T15 from the fender, those little clips, once you have both of those off, you can go ahead and pop those over, and you can start working on the other side. All right, so you can take as much of the splash guard down as you want. All right, so once you have the splash guard kind of out of the way, then you can start seeing all the stuff that you need. So that is our side marker. We're gonna take that down. There you have that 10mm. And then you've got those right here as well. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take down this whole splash guard on both sides. That way this whole bumper assembly will be able to just drop out all at once. When I am ready to drop it, I am just gonna go ahead and throw one of these back in, just kind of hold everything together. Anyways, here you can kind of see there's 1, 2. of your bolts that holds the front bumper onto that front fender. Our side marker is disconnected and our fog light is disconnected. All right, so once you have all the bottom pieces unbolted, and this is pretty much where you're at. So everything else is disconnected. We've got a small little push clip right here in the corner, and then we'll clear those tabs, and then we're ready to take this whole thing off. All right, so one thing that I forgot to mention is you're gonna have a little bit of clearance between here and the hood for getting that cover off. But once you get it adjusted down a little bit, then you get the space for the hood to come out, and you're left with a naked Corvette. All right, so it's probably a week and a half later, but it's time to get back on the C6 and finish out this oil cooler install. Probably gonna break it up in the next handful of days just because that's what time allows. Yeah, let me show you where we're at. All right, so what is in our DRM cooler kit? Well, here's what we got. Starting with our bracket, obviously our lines, and I believe these are -10 lines. We have 2 adapter fittings. This is to adapt to AN on the cooler itself. We've got a temp sensor for our cooler block off kit. However, we're not going to need this since we already have oil temp sensor on the other side of the oil pan. Got our hardware kit. That's gonna go with our bracket. And we've got from Improved Racing, part of their kit, but it's the actual block off plate for the engine. So this is gonna go pretty much on the engine just like this. On this side, we have our thermostat, so it's a 180-degree thermostat. We're gonna come in, we're gonna go out, and if we were gonna run this little fitting, that's where we would plug into. But being that we're not, we're just gonna plug that with a 1/8 NPT and some pipe dope. Just make sure it can hold up to the heat. All right, so now that you've seen kind of the quick overview of what comes in this DRM kit, before I start assembling stuff, I gotta take the old stuff off the car. We'll get to that in a second. But one thing I do want to make sure everyone is aware that it costs next to nothing but to run oil through your brand new line and your brand new cooler before you install stuff and have it ready. So if there are any manufacturing debris or other shavings in it, you want to find that out now before you plumb it up to the car and then send all that stuff into the actual engine of your project. So I'll be doing that off camera, but please make sure you do run some motor oil through it, clean motor oil. Don't use like your dirty, glittery oil coming from your 60,000 mile engine. Make sure you put some decent oil, clean oil at least, through it. See if it's coming out clean on the other side. That's really just the goal of it. All right, so now let's go ahead and hop underneath the car and show you actually what lines were taken off my car, because it has a Z51 from 2007 integrated radiator oil cooler combo thing. All right, so that up there is on the side of our radiator, same as this guy down here. And both of those are our oil cooler lines. So again, we'll have this little clip to remove, and then we will want to plug that side of the cooler. Those lines, those bent 45s, those are the rest of our oil cooler lines. So one thing that you do want to make sure you're doing on this is when you have your cooler mounted and your old lines off, if you have them, you're going to start running your lines from the front of the car backwards towards the engine. You're going to do that, and once you have those lines in place, that's when I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect it to my cooler. And then before I mount that block, I'm going to go ahead and connect my lines to that block. So once they're done, I don't have to worry about clearance. I can just tighten them easily in my hand. And then I can mount that block all at once to the car.
All right, so on the C6 Corvette, different than the C5, what holds our air dam in are these, I guess, 8mm fasteners. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this existing riv nut, which is on the center line of my cooler, or of the car. That's gonna be the center line of my first piece. So that means I'll go ahead and be able to only drill 2 holes through this. That should be tight enough for this part. So all we're looking to do now is we have our 2 spots, and we're gonna go ahead and level this out.
All right, so as you can see, we are as level as this cheap level is going to tell me it is.
And all right, so we have our center and then our side holes drilled. I did vacuum out all of the aluminum and steel shavings, I guess, that I could get to. There's a little bit still over here, but that wasn't coming out. Oh well. All right, bracket is in, cool. All right, bracket is in and it's ready.
All right, so underneath the car, I've already got this pulled out of the way. But here we've got this little retaining clip. Not much to it. And carefully take it off so you don't just shoot it across the garage. That's all there is. All right, so now that we've got the clip off, we're going to be able to slowly work this line out and off. Really not a good way to not get dirty, but got the drain pan here, and we're gonna there we go.
All right, so I switched to the top side of the engine for this upper oil line. So we're gonna go ahead and pop that clip off, and then we're gonna be able to somehow snake our hand in here and help pull that line off. As soon as you do pull that line off, though, make sure you have your catch can directly underneath. Mine is not right now, but...
All right, so here's something that I've noticed since having this off. It's obvious where the threads from that fitting go. They go into the actual cooler. But with that plug being off and that O-ring being gone, there's actually a gap between this end tank and the actual lip in between that metal fitting and this plastic end tank. So yeah, that's not the best, because it's actually leaking just a little bit of coolant. You can see the drips that's been happening, and you'll see another drop here in a second. But yeah,
that plug is 100% needed, not just for the oil, but also for keeping the radiator full. Interesting. All right, so the front lines are disconnected. Now we're gonna have to go ahead and get this plate. All right, so now the front lines are disconnected. Now we're left with getting the oil filter and that adapter plate off. So once that adapter plate is off, then I can start trying to yank the lines from the front out the back of the car, basically right where I'm at. So this is gonna be a two-handed and dirty job. So I'll come back when those are off. Those bolts are just a 10 millimeter right there. Yeah, we'll come back in a second.
So this morning came down to continue working on the car, and yeah, the oil cooler lower port, if you don't have the plug or something in, that O-ring on it, it's not to seal engine oil from coming out, that fitting. It is to seal engine coolant, antifreeze, from coming out of the radiator. Yeah, this is what I woke up to. All that nice trail of antifreeze that pulled against that bottom low spot on the floor. In other news, I now know where my garage slopes, so that's fun. Anyways, kitty litter to the rescue, and then I'll come back after a bit. All right, so this is what it looks like. This plug is filled with some JB Weld. Not my finest work, but its entire goal is to not leak. And I think this will do it. All right, so now the part that I haven't really been looking forward to is going ahead and pulling these lines. You got one right there at my toe, and the other one's still a little bit higher up in the up by the radiator. So yeah, they've got oil in them, and I'm about to yank all this stuff out. I don't have a really good way to tell you how to do this. All right, so obviously we got this off. That's our block off plate or plate adapter, whatever you want to call it. That's what it looks like. 2 ports and 2 bolt holes. And yeah, getting this off the car, it's not that bad. But you are going to want to make sure that you have the catch can underneath this, because as you're positioning, twisting, and rotating this to get it out, it's going to drop more oil. Additionally, where these 2 lines are close together, that's directly over the spring. If you still have your transverse leaf spring in your car, there is a clamp there that holds these lines together, holds them in place. You need to pop these out of that first. All right, so this is coming off the, well, right above the oil filter. And that's where we have the existing lines. That's what that little keeper is. Being that I don't have those anymore and I want all that space, I'm gonna go ahead and pull that guy off. All right, so while you're underneath here and trying to get your knock sensor out of the way, you don't need to mess with anything of the actual, that wire clamp or that ground. Leave those alone. Just loosen that 13 millimeter for the actual sensor, and that gives you the ability to pivot the sensor up a little bit. All right, so we've got one line, which is going to be our passenger side line. We've got it run mostly where it needs to be. So I did have to cut out this small notch in my radiator section. I might try to add some material back once these are in, but the line is basically gonna have to run up that way. And because I have this Z51 oil cooler on the side, it's just a little bit wider than the radiator probably needed to be for this purpose. But anyways, it does put a little bit of a weird routing over here. Comes over top of our sway bar, and nothing's
cable managed or anti-chafe or anything else. Nothing of that nature is complete at this point. But yeah, it's run through, and you can kind of see that stainless line through there, running in the position the old one used to be. All right, so now that we're underneath here, when these lines are going to be pulled up and into the radiator bay area, they are going to be away from this, but I'm not that comfortable with how tight everything's going to be running on everything. So I'm going to pull these lines out and wrap them, and then I'll go ahead and throw them back in.
All right, so yes, continuity issue. Hair's back, shaved, beard is much shorter. Anyways, that's out of the way. Just had all the other parts come in that I needed. So all this is some DEI, basically easy loom. The only purpose of this is really just to protect that stainless braid that's underneath here. That's all I'm really trying to protect, and just anti-chafe. This is rated for like 345 operating temperature, and then like melt points like 5 something. My oil is never going to get that hot. If it is getting that hot, I will shut the car down. So yeah, this will protect me from abrasion stuff, and now I can actually go ahead and start throwing these back in the car. So again, that's my that's my passenger side, it's the long hose. That's my driver's side, which is the short hose. All right, so we've got lines in place, and they're running behind that motor mount. And they're coming out over top of my sway bar, underneath my steering rack, around the radiator, and up to the front.
All right, so you can see kind of briefly, kind of a little bit, lines are in. There is a fair bit of this radiator ducting shroud piece that is missing, and let's see if I can position it. You can see up there those little marks. Those are what I put on the shroud. It's like, all right, well, I could probably just go straight out and then come into this open space over here and run the hoses. I elected to follow the pictures and the routing that DRM sent, and I believe that's only for a C5. I think this radiator is a little bit wider. At least that's my guess, especially with my little end tank for the Z51 package. Don't do that. Don't cut this out like this. Just go ahead and drill a 1-inch hole up the shroud somewhere. Yep, so that's what you get for following the instructions. Don't do that. All right, so we've got the lines run from the front, we've got ourselves connected, we got all our clearance. Now we just have the last little step. So again, we've got our T-stat already installed. We have our 2 mounting holes. We have our in and our out. And then we have this open sensor. The kit does come with -8 to -10 adapters. So those will obviously go in. But we do have this other sensor port. It does come with a 8th NPT plug. And it does have some of this sealant already on it, which I don't really trust that much. So I'm just going to add a little bit of pipe dope. And we are threading into aluminum, so, you know, just be careful. We're going to put a little bit of motor oil on this O-ring. And go in there. Okay, there's our test fit. Our lines have plenty of slack to get to what they need to do. Probably a little bit of excess, so I'll pull some back towards the radiator if I need to. But yeah, got our knock sensor up out of the way, and time to throw the lines on, throw the gasket in, and continue on. All right, so here we are. The adapter block is on. My port is good. Lines are tight, and yeah, now that was a bit of a struggle getting this adapter to line up. So you can kind of see that the head for the thermostat is right up against this plastic shield in between the block and the bell housing. So that made it quite a bit more difficult to get in place. Not the end of the world, but still could have been a lot easier. All right, so now that the car has got all the stuff that it needs to have on it, all the lines, the blocks, everything else is tight, at least to my knowledge. I'm going to start reassembling part of the car, put the exhaust piece back in, which is just that one section of the cat, with new gasket, new bolts. I'll throw the intake back on, which again, that's 2 bolts really, or 1 bolt really. Then go ahead and get the upper radiator support back in. And then it's time to go ahead and pull the fuel pump relay or fuse, whichever one it is, in the engine bay. I'll pull that, and then I can actually try to start the car. And I don't want it to actually start, that's why we're pulling it, but that's allowing me to go ahead and cycle the engine and trying to build oil pressure. And then I can go ahead and fill up with oil. So that's gonna be the fun part. Once that's done, then the front bumper goes back on. Double check all fluids, we'll take it for a test drive, and then yeah, that's really about it. All right, so I've already gone ahead and started the car. Everything else is working properly. There's no leaks that I've found yet. So it's time to reassemble. And so Corvettes definitely have this front air dam, as I took off in the beginning. I'll try to do this a couple hands. So this is how it's actually going to bolt in the car. My section has a broken flap down there, but if you don't have a steep driveway, yours will be there. Obviously, we've got a big plate there, and we have this part that's got to slide past it. So center it up with this first hole here and that center bolt, and then go ahead and cut around it. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed the channel. I hope you continue to enjoy the channel. And if you do want to guarantee that I respond to all your questions and comments, or if you do want to be able to join a live stream with me, talking about the car, talking about other interests, whatever it might be, then please go ahead and join. We'll talk to everyone later. Thanks. All right, so forgot to record myself an outro for this oil cooler video. But earlier this week, I got back from the track. I went to the track on Tuesday, and yeah, I used to get to 290 or so, 295 degree oil temp within like a lap and a half of trying to push. And I ran like 6 30-minute sessions, pushing pretty hard, and yeah, didn't have any issues with oil temp. Radiator coolant temp got to like 235, but that's a different thing. That's a future upgrade. Anyways, the cooler does work. I personally would probably go with the improved racing one instead of the DRM for a future car or a future project, but the cooler is a cooler and it cools, so call it a win. Anyways, sorry for being a little bit longer of a video. Trying to keep them a little bit shorter, but there's a fair bit on this project. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.